it's tough to top the feeling of unboxing and setting up a brand new phone. Even if you restore all of your data and apps, it feels like you're getting a fresh start. That fresh start usually comes with a whole bunch of exciting new features too, but they're not always easy to find out. Now that Apple's added some new buttons and ways to customize the look and feel of iOS 18, setting up an iPhone 16 can feel more complicated than ever. Thankfully, we've already had a few days with the entire series, and we picked out a few things that can make your iPhone 16 feel more personal right out of the box. Here are a few tips and tricks to get the most out of your iPhone 16. Tap into the camera control. Of course, there's no better place to start exploring the iPhone 16 series than with the camera control. After all, it's the one new button that's not just a button that makes its way to all 4 iPhone 16 devices. The camera control isn't hard to find as you feel your way around your new iPhone. It sits low on the right side, right around where the 5G window used to be, and is pretty easy to reach in either landscape or portrait orientation. When you start to play with the camera control, you'll quickly realize why Apple didn't want to call it a button. Although it technically is one and can easily be used to trigger the camera shutter, it does so much more than that. Rather than poorly explaining how to open and use camera control, we'll run through what each type of press does. Firm press opens the camera and also triggers the shutter. Single half press opens the previous menu to scroll through. Double half press opens the overall camera menu to change settings. Using the camera control works like this. Press the button once to open your camera, then lightly tap it twice to swap between zoom, depth, exposure, and photographic styles. Once you've chosen a setting, you can re-access it with a single light tap. You should know, however, that you don't have to swipe on the camera control itself to control your setting. Instead, it's much easier to swipe up and down on the edge of your display. Rearrange your home screen. One of the key pieces of iOS 18 is that it now feels more like Android than ever. And by that, you can finally rearrange apps and widgets so they don't float all to the top of your screen. As someone who loves a clean, simple setup, iOS 18 has been music to my ears. Thankfully, rearranging your home screen is no different than previous versions of iOS. You just have more control over it. So when you're ready to mix things up, simply long press on your wallpaper and start dragging things around. While you're rearranging, you may as well check out Apple's colorful new app icons. You can change them via the same long press on your wallpaper and then tap the Edit and Customize buttons in that order to open up app settings. From there, you can fine-tune your icons light, dark, automatic, or tinted. The first 3 are pretty straightforward, while the last one lets you match your app icons and parts of some widgets to color in your wallpaper. Customize your control center. While we're on the topic of rearranging, Apple has completely redone its control center for iOS 18. Like moving around apps and widgets, you can drag and drop different control center buttons to make them easier to reach. Even if you don't want to move your controls around, there are still plenty of new ones to dig into. Instead of the previous control center, which offered just a single menu of quick toggles, you now have access to 4 different screens. One for your iPhone's media, one for home controls, one for connectivity, and of course, the customizable favorites menu. If you're ready to mix up your control center, here's what to do. Swipe down to open the control center, tap the plus-shaped icon in the top left corner, drag and drop your controls, press Add a Control to choose additional buttons from the menu. And yes, the best news of all is that the control center works like a home screen. You no longer have to reach the top of your screen. Check out new Photos app. Apple also finally decided to show the Photos app some love to match its camera updates. But the new layout takes a bit of getting used to. It's both more cramped than before, yet easier to navigate. The default layout now shows 5 photos per row, starting your gallery about 2/3 of the way down the screen. Below that, you'll get a tab marked Recent Days, which covers days when you took several photos, and a tab marked People for faces that appear often. Unfortunately, Apple doesn't consider pets people, so you'll have to work a little harder to find your furry friends. Outside of the shuffled layout, there's not much to explore with Photos in iOS 18. At least not yet. Before long, it should be one of the stars of Apple Intelligence, at least once it can remove objects like Google's Magic Editor does. Grab a protective iPhone 16 case. While there's no denying that Apple's combination of glass and aluminum or titanium is formidable, it's certainly not invincible. The one time you take your iPhone 16 for a careless adventure is probably the one time something happens to it. The good thing is, however, that you should rarely feel like you have to take your iPhone without a case, as there are by far more options for Apple products than for any other device, at least unless you were one of the 4 people who bought a fine woven case for the iPhone 15 series. Just keep in mind that buying an iPhone 16 case comes with a few new wrinkles. For starters, all 4 devices cases are different sizes, with the vanilla iPhone 16 sitting at 6.1 inches. From there, you'll need a different case for the 6.3-inch iPhone 16 Pro, another for the 6.7-inch iPhone 16 Plus, and the biggest case for the 6.9-inch iPhone 16 Pro Max. Mix in the camera control and action button on the sides, you can't even use a case from the previous generation. Try new effects and messages. RCS support will probably get and deserves most of the attention in messages, but it's not the only trick Apple kept up its sleeve. After all, it's not always easy to sell a die-hard iMessage user on better communication with Android phones, because they'll still only see a green bubble on the other side. What might be more exciting, however, is the ability to react to a message with any emoji in Apple's library and to apply different text effects to other parts of your messages. The effects are somewhere on the level of Microsoft PowerPoint, but they're still fun. Once again, most of the new messages features are active by default, but it's still worth a quick trip to the settings menu if you want to change one or two of them. Just remember that Apple has rearranged its settings in iOS 18, so access to messages now lies alphabetically under the Apps subheading. Take a hike in Apple's Maps. While I usually prefer Apple Maps for driving directions and saving my hiking routes for use on my Garmin watch, I'm open to trying new things. One of those new things is that Apple Maps now supports downloadable trails. Should you decide to let Apple Maps be your guide, you have two options. Either choose from a pre-existing trailhead or create one of your own. If you want to create your own hike within Apple Maps, here's how it works. First, open Apple Maps, then search for a nearby or not nearby park. Tap on a trailhead, usually marked with a green icon, press Create a Custom Route, select other trail markers or campsites to add them to your route, and complete your route with the Save button. You can also choose to reverse your hike, make it an out and back, or let Apple Maps close your loop by filling in trails it deems appropriate. Test out Apple's photo styles. The camera control may have grabbed most of the attention regarding Apple's iPhone 16 cameras, but it's not the only upgrade. After introducing photographic styles, which function like Instagram filters, as far back as the iPhone 13 series, they've been upgraded for Apple's latest devices. Previously, you could swipe between 4 styles: rich contrast, vibrant, warm, or cool, and each one only modified the tone and warmth of your shot. Now, you still have access to those basic profiles, but you can also tap into a few rose-based options, as well as dramatic, cozy, ethereal, and a few black and white photographic styles. Here's how to swap your photographic style. Open your iPhone 16 camera, tap the small set of dots in the top right corner, and swipe left or right to go through the photographic styles. Secure your logins with the Passwords app. I already enjoy setting up a new iPhone simply because I'm almost always logged into my favorite apps right away. But now, Apple has a new way to make password management easier. It introduced a Passwords app as part of iOS 18, and it's worth a look if you're not already a LastPass or 1Password user. If you already use another password manager, you might find it redundant, but you might also find that Apple already has most of your passwords if you save them in Safari. Passwords automatically locks itself using your Face ID information, making it as secure as your iPhone. If you feel like sharing, you can create groups within the Passwords app to send a Netflix password or any other login back and forth. Just keep in mind the passwords won't get you around geo restrictions. Program your action button. Finally, we should discuss the other button that Apple added to the iPhone 16 series, the action button. It's not as new or exciting as the camera control since it was already available on the iPhone 15 Pro, but now it's standard issue for all Apple flagships. Essentially, the action button replaces the mute switch sitting above the volume buttons on the left side of the iPhone 16, and it adds a bunch of, well, actions to the mix. The action button can also be used to toggle focus, open the camera, turn on the flashlight, or jump into a favorite app or control. Here's how to remap your action button. First off, open the Settings app and select the action button. Swipe left or right to go through the available actions, and press the back arrow or swipe out of Settings to confirm.